Hi, I'm Lana from wellnessjourneys.co.uk, and this is the second video to talk about depression and the chakra system. So if you were listening to my first, or if you watched my first video prior to this one, then I've gone through the chakra system and I arrived at chakra 5. And chakra 5, just to say, is the center for communication and truth. And again, just to say that chakra means wheel in Sanskrit. So our chakras are turning constantly, moving constantly, and we absorb negative and positive experiences that really create our psychological understanding of the world and which forms our core belief system. Um, the fifth chakra, which is also known as the divine ego, the center of the divine ego, where we actually can communicate and be in our truth about things, about anything at all. When we think about the child that speaks the truth constantly, that doesn't have the emotional understanding of knowing what's going on, what's happened to him or her. And when I look back at my childhood, if you watch the first video, prior to this, I explained a lot about my depression from a young age and not knowing that I was depressed. Coming up to the age of 14, when things happened to me as a child that shouldn't have happened, seeing things that I shouldn't have seen, and more importantly, not having the support. I couldn't go to my mother emotionally and be held because she wasn't there for herself. I found out that she'd had 6 children prior to coming to Bristol and having me at the age of 36. I didn't find this out until 2017. And finding that she'd had 6 children and she'd gone to her grave 23 years prior to this with that secret was very painful because my mother wasn't able to live her truth. She wasn't able to be in her truth and to communicate and to let us know, me and my 2 sisters, about her former life. There was a lot of shame there, I'm sure. But the third eye, which we're going to come to next, is the eye of the soul. And when we talk about the eye of the soul, we're talking about what the physical eye sees comparative to what the spiritual eye sees. We see everything through the spiritual eye. We see what is right and we see what is wrong. We see the good things. We see the things that can encourage us and help to mold our core beliefs in a positive way. We can actually see the world through different eyes that we can choose to change. If I see my brother doing something that I don't agree with, am I going to join him or am I going to tell him he's wrong? If I'm going to tell him he's wrong, I leave that with him, but I'm speaking my truth. As an example, the seventh chakra, and we're talking about just the 7 major chakras here that correlate to the 7 energy fields. The 7th chakra, which is on top of the head, it's related to our knowledge, our wisdom, our all-knowing, the God within. It's all about our connection to the divine. It's all about connecting to the trees, to the earth, to Mother Earth, and integrating the crown chakra and bringing that energy down from the universe, down to meet our human self, is something that I have learned that has helped me so much to overcome or to deal and to manage with my depression. I would say that my depression now, it's in very big intervals apart. I don't wake up every day with that same feeling that I used to have when I was younger. I now am able to manage my depression. And with the help of the metaphysical body, that I'm learning more and more to understand how our metaphysical body carries the weight of our story. This is us. This is what I carry. From the etheric field, to the emotional field, to the mental field, to the astral level, where I go to sleep at night and my subconscious comes up, which allows my dreams to surface. Coming to the causal level, to the celestial level, the third eye, the 6th level, and then to the crown chakra, which is the connection to the all-knowing, all-seeing world where we hold our knowledge, the connection to life, the connection to all the mountains and nature. When we're born, from my understanding, when we come into the world, our base chakra is already a very small chakra that is just starting to develop. And that is the first chakra that is formed. It's connected down into our lower spine. And our spine, which is what I want to talk about now, is separate to our emotions. So the front of our body is our emotional centers, and our rear is our will and our power centers. So if my willpower, if my concept is I want to grow up and be a teacher, that's my concept. I'm seeing this somewhere in my life, if it's from a past life experience that, I've come back to fulfill, that I'm going to be a teacher. I'm going to be a healer. I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be something that is going to contribute to this world. If I'm seeing that as a concept, then that can live with me throughout my life. If I'm told by my family, no, you can't be an artist, you have to be a lawyer, you have to follow in the family tradition, that's going against my will center. That's going against my will and my determination. Because our will center is really about having the will and the willpower to follow through and to actualize in life what we need to do. Sometimes our will center gets blocked, which is understandable when we have an emotional block. So if we haven't dealt with things on an emotional level, then ultimately, it can affect our will center, and it can paralyze us and cripple us. It can make us believe that we're not good enough to become what we've always wanted to be. I heard a story the other day, and this is one of many, many stories with the Black Lives movement that's going on, of someone that went to his careers office when he was a little boy, when he was about 14 or 15. I call him a little boy, a young person, and said, I want to go into the army, and I want to be, a commanding officer, and I want to contribute to my country. And he was of Jamaican heritage, although he was born in England. And his careers officer, he told me, said, black boys don't join the army. That you can be a carpenter, you can be a football player, you can be this or that, but they don't join the army. What do you think that did to that person? And we're talking about something now that is very relative in everyone's lives at this time, that all lives matter, but Black Lives Matter, is the anthem at the moment, where we're starting to move into understanding the separatism and how our belief systems are formed, not just from that careers officer. His belief was, from wherever he got that from, that you're not good enough. I'm superior to you, and that's my understanding. You're not good enough. So the ignorance that played out there, but how that played out into that young man's belief system, where, oh, okay, so I'm black, so I can't go into the army. I'm not acceptable. That followed through, and sure enough, he didn't join the army, and sure enough, he got very dead-end jobs throughout his life. But he went on knowing throughout his life that actually I'm more than what I've been told I am. So we can take that story and we can align it with our conceptual belief that I am able to be whoever I want, do whatever I want. All I need is the encouragement. So when I look at my childhood and wanting to be a graphic designer or an artist, I was very creative and I loved colours, which ultimately I can understand now why I'm drawn to colours, and the chakra system, which is all about colours, which is another episode. But I wanted to go into that field, that creative field. My teacher, my art teacher, told my mother, she's very creative, and I can see that she would do very well, as an artist or in that field. And my mother, bless her, turned around and said that, well, she can't, she's 15, she's old enough to go to work, and she needs to support the family. Dreams crushed. And I left school at 15, 2 weeks after my 15th birthday, and I worked in factories for 15 years. I hated it. I went into menial jobs part-time, hated it, working at Kentucky, working as a cleaner, doing all these different jobs because I believed that that was all I was good enough for. So my concept of myself not being able to actualize my realization at a very young age that I was able, that I could be that creative person, I could follow my dream and make that into a reality, was crushed at a very early age. So you can see how important it is when the third eye is developing alongside our actualization in our will centers to follow out our concepts. Um, if we spin that on its head, and as I said earlier, if we're told that we have to do something that we don't want to do, um, then that causes the block. And for a lot of people, that can cause blocks on a mental level, it can cause blocks on an emotional level, and it can cause blocks on a physical level. A lot of people will find coping mechanisms to get through life, to hide their pain, or to try to get beyond that block. If we've got a block is what I call on a physical level, where, as an example, what happened to me as a child, getting raped at 14 and having to have surgery by the time I was 19, and have one of my ovaries taken away. Hence, by the time I was 30, I had to have a complete hysterectomy. But the cyst that they found at 19 on my ovary, I believe now, when I look at it and my understanding and all my teachings and my trainings and everything that I've gone through to understand why I got sick on a physical level, was because the center of my reproductive organs as a little girl, where I wasn't developed properly. So with the violation of my physical body, my body closed up, it contracted, my womb, everything closed up. And this is what happens to a lot of women and men when they're sexually abused. And having that operation to remove the cyst, I can look back now and I can see that cyst was my hatred. It was my hatred. It was my block. It was what I hated about myself. I hated that part of my body. So over years, with a lot of therapy, I've come to start loving that part of my body, but also, more importantly, started to open and realign with those first three chakras, which is the etheric field, the emotional field, and the mental field. And as I said earlier, we're aligned, our chakras come down and align with our fields. The chakras play a huge part in depression and our mental health, because the chakra at the solar plexus level, and that is just below the breastbone and above the belly button, it's all about empowerment. It's all about where our core beliefs are formed, but it's also being in the mental field where our self-critic lies, our self-critic, our self-expression, our judgmental self. And it's where we have a lot of physical problems. A lot of people suffer with IBS, stress, anxiety, depression, Crohn's disease, gallbladder problems, bladder and bowel problems, cancers. So you can see where I'm coming from, that our body, our physical body, is responding to our emotional state. So if we have a healthy second center, healthy third center, then our first center starts to get stronger. So in the next episode, I'm going to be covering how we can kind of strengthen our chakra system. You've been listening to myself, Lana Lynn Marino. You can go to my website, wellnessjourneys.co.uk, and I'm here to help people and to let people know that every single one of us has mental health, be it good or bad. Every single one of us can manage our depression or anxiety, but it starts with us having the understanding, if you're open to that, of how we energetically relate to the world. Take care, and I'll see you in the next episode.